Okay. Govind, you want to wait 2 more minutes? Your moderator has left the room. Just wait for him to come back.
Okay, sir.
Oh, he's back. Okay, so Shiva is back.
Yeah.
Shiva, welcome back. We're just in time to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So I welcome you all for the today's academic session for the AWARE Fellows. Today we're supposed to have three topics together. It's a huge one. One is an image optimization, needling, and artifact. So today we are planning to do only two components of it because both of them itself is a huge topic by itself. So I request Ritesh to give us one more 10-minute slot in the next upcoming meeting for the needle visualization. So today we will look at the image optimization and the artifacts. So that is what is the plan we have for today. Both the topics are quite a drive because more of physics. So we are not interested in that. That's why we took up a biology and came to medicine. But it's so dry. We try to make it more friendly and easy to understand. Let us see how our fellows are able to deliver it. So first we are planning to present the image optimization and then artifacts. So let us begin with Dr. Govind Shahji for image optimization. Over to Govind.
Thank you, sir. I shall start my presentation now. Good morning. My name is Dr. Govind Shahji. I am presently doing my fellowship in ultrasound guided regional anesthesia in Mahatma Gandhi Medical College and Research Institute, Puducherry, under Dr. Shiva Shanmugam, sir. Today I shall be briefly talking on image optimization in ultrasound guided regional anesthesia. In this presentation, I will cover the topic of what is an optimal image, what are the steps that can be taken to get an optimum image, what are the softwares available to optimize an image, and finally finish off with a flowchart for image optimization. In this slide, you can see a blurry image and we are not sure what it is. On focusing, it's clear that it's the Eiffel Tower and we are able to differentiate and see the different parts of the Eiffel Tower. Similarly, an optimal image obtained with the help of an ultrasound should help differentiate different structures. Here in this presentation, I shall be discussing about what are the steps that we can do to obtain an optimal image. The first step for providing regional anesthesia is ergonomics. That is, the ultrasound machine, the patient and the performer should be in line, and the patient and the performer should be comfortable. Once the patient has been positioned, we have to select appropriate transducer for the procedure. If it is a superficial procedure, it is better to choose a high frequency linear probe, while for deeper structures, it is better to choose a curvilinear probe. After the selection of the appropriate probe, we have to select the type of exams. The ultrasound comes with a number of presets. Presets are a combination of pre-selected settings of dynamic range, depth, focal zone, automatic gain control, compound imaging, and tissue harmonic frequencies. So what preset do is, it will save our time, which we will spend otherwise optimizing these different parameters. Even after a preset, each of these parameters can be independently changed based on our likings. The next step is placement of the transducer probe over the skin. From the ultrasound probe that is kept over the skin, ultrasound waves are generated. The fate of the echoes that are leaving the probe are scattering, attenuation, refraction, and reflection. The image that is formed on the screen depends on the number of the returned echoes. The returning echoes can be maximized by making the angle of incidence to 90 degree. This can be achieved by maneuvering the ultrasound probe through a set of organized maneuvering techniques known as part maneuver. What is part maneuver? It is an organized set of maneuvers that can be done by the performer to maximize the echo returning to the probe. The maneuver includes pressure, rotation, alignment, and tilting. This is the incident wave and this is the reflected wave. For the maximum numbers of echoes to return to the probe, the angle of incidence and should be 90 degrees so that the angle of the reflected wave is also 90 degree. When the image is tilted, by the help of part maneuver, you can make the angle of incidence and the reflection 90 degrees so maximum echoes return back to the probe. All the waves that are returning back to the probe are processed and an image is formed on the monitor. This image can be an optimum image or not. If it is an optimal image, then good. If it is not an optimum image, then there are different parameters in the ultrasound machine that can be adjusted to provide an optimal image. On the further presentation, we shall be discussing what these parameters are. When we are talking about an optimal image, what we mean is resolution. So what is resolution? The ability of an imaging system to differentiate two structures that are close to each other as separate structure is called as resolution. The different components of a resolution are spatial resolution, contrast resolution, and temporal resolution. Spatial resolution is the resolution regarding space, contrast resolution is the resolution regarding gray shades, and temporal resolution is the resolution regarding time. Spatial resolution, it is influenced by axial and lateral resolution. Axial resolution is the ability of the ultrasound to differentiate two objects that lie along the axis, while lateral resolution is the ability of the ultrasound to differentiate two objects that are lying side by side. So next is contrast resolution. The ability of the imaging system to differentiate the echoes returning from different parts of the body and display their amplitude in different shades of gray. For example, you can see in this world map, the land is shown as light gray. Now when I make it even more contrast to the water body, it is made darker, so you can easily make the differentiation between land and water. Next is temporal resolution. Here you can see consecutive images are formed, and these consecutive images, more number of consecutive images joined together to make a video. So temporal resolution is the rate at which consecutive unique images are produced to form a continuous moving image in real time on the monitor. Here in this slide, you can see the parameters that predominantly affect each resolution. So here you can make out frequency, focal number, and so on. Compound imaging, tissue harmonic imaging, line density, and edge affect spatial resolution, while contrast resolution is affected by gain, dynamic range, gray map, color B mode imaging, speckle reduction, and temporal resolution is affected by depth and sector width. But that does not necessarily mean that this is the only function that is affected. Sometimes there is an overlap of parameters for the other resolutions as well. So first we shall be discussing about frequency of spatial resolution. Frequency. While there is high frequency and low frequency, while high frequency is associated with better spatial resolution, there is lower depth perception. While in lower frequency, there is better depth perception, but there is reduced spatial resolution. Now we shall discuss about focal zone and numbers. The focal point is the point where the ultrasound beam is the most narrowest. If we are focusing an image at the focal point, the better spatial resolution. So next is focal numbers. We can have more than one focal number in certain ultrasound machine. In this image, you can clearly see that the two structures that are at the focal zone are clearly seen as two separate structures in the ultrasound machine, while that are further away and that are very near to the probe are seen as only a single structure. Next, we shall discuss about compound imaging. So rather than obtaining one frame at one angle, the ultrasound machine uses electronic beam steering technology to acquire multiple frames from different angles and combine these to form a single compound image. Here, the image on the left side is taken without compound imaging, and the right side it is taken with compound imaging. Here you can see on the second image or the image on the right side, there is better delineation, reduced speckle pattern, and acoustic noise. Next is tissue harmonic imaging. The transducers produce fundamental beams. These fundamental beams come into contact with tissues and form secondary harmonic beams. The transducers have certain filters that only process the harmonic beams. So what this does is the image that are formed will have better noise ratio, increased spatial and contrast resolution, and improved detection of low contrast lesions. Here you can see the two images. The one on the right is taken with the help of tissue harmonic imaging. Here you can see there is better contrast and better delineation between the structures. Next, we are going to discuss about line density. The number of lines in a given sector width is line density. Increasing the line density can increase the spatial resolution of an image formed, but it will reduce the temporal resolution as more information is needed to be processed. Next, we are going to discuss edge enhancement. Edge enhancement is an image processing filter. This filter will identify the boundaries and increase the image contrast around the edges. Here you can see the edges are not very clear, but in the second image you can see the edges are clear because of the use of edge enhancement software. Next, we are going to discuss about gain. So gain refers to the amplification of the amplitude of the returning signals to compensate for the loss of energy due to attenuation. Here you can see there is loss of energy, but once you increase the gain, there is amplification of the returning signals. This button is to increase or decrease the overall gain. Here you can see an ideal gain image in the middle, while when the gain is reduced, the image is dark blurred image, and while it is increased, it becomes blown out and flooded. In certain machines, there are separate controls for near and far gain. Near gain amplifies the echoes above the focal point, while far gain amplifies the echo below the focal point. Time gain compensation is the selective amplification of the sound waves from greater depth. Here you can see by increasing the third and the sixth, the amplitude of the sound waves are increased, while in this image the fifth and the sixth, when it is increased, the amplitude of the sound waves are increased. Next, we will talk about dynamic range. Next is dynamic range. Dynamic range is a range that controls the spectrum of grayscale. In this image, that is in this graph, you can see the dynamic range is from 30 to 60 decibels, and the echoes that are in this wavelength are only being shown in the monitor. Now when you are increasing the range from 20 to 60 decibels, these green and orange waves are also seen. So here is an example to understand dynamic range. Here in low dynamic range, there is less shadows of gray and high in contrast, while in high dynamic range, there is more shadows of gray and the image is smoother. So like I said earlier, low dynamic range, there is less shades of gray and high in contrast, while in high dynamic range, there are more shades of gray and the image is smoother. Here, this image is having low dynamic range, while here this image is having higher dynamic range. Again, this image, here you can see the image with the low dynamic range. The image is much more contrast than this image which is in high dynamic range, which is much more smoother. Next, we will talk about gray map. Gray map determines how dark or light you prefer to show each levels of white, gray or black. It increases or decreases the number of gray shades, and gray maps adjust to the brightness of gray shades. Dynamic range and gray maps may affect one another. Like the example I have shown you earlier, here land is shown as light gray. By changing the map, here you can see it is shown as dark gray, while the sea becomes even more white. These three images are of the same structure taken with the different gray map setting. As you can see, the middle image is much more clearer compared to the other two images. Next is color beam mode imaging. This is a relatively new technology. Here the grayscale is replaced with different color tones. So what this does is improve visualization of low contrast images. Here is an image taken in gray scale. As you can see, the contrast is not very clear, or it is a low contrast image. When you change the color, you can see just by changing the color, the contrast has become much more better. Next is speckle reduction. Small noises or echoes that are coming back from the image are seen as light, small salt and pepper echoes. So these are known as speckle. In speckle reduction, what the filter does is it reduces these echoes so a smoother image is seen. Next is depth. It may be necessary to change the depth control to place the structure of interest in the middle of the monitor to optimize its visualization. So here is an image showing ideal depth. Here are two images which shows too much depth, where it reduces the temporal resolution and the size of the targets are smaller. And here it is an image showing too little depth, where the area of study is not seen. The ultrasound waves from the probes after reaching the target are reflected back and it reaches the transducer back to form an image. In case of deeper target, it takes a longer duration for the ultrasound waves to reach the target and come back. Hence, there is a lag. So that is the reason why as depth increases, there is a reduction in temporal resolution. Next is sector width. Sector width and line density are two other factors which can increase the temporal resolution. So the temporal resolution can be reduced by reducing the depth of scanning or decreasing the number of lines or making the sector width smaller. These are two images that are taken of same structure. Here you can see the sector width is more in the right side, while on the left side it is reduced. This slide is to summarize how different parameters affect the different resolution. For example, increasing frequency will increase spatial resolution. Increasing the focal points or focal numbers increases spatial resolution but decreases temporal resolution. By the addition of compound imaging, the spatial resolution and contrast resolution are increased and temporal resolution is decreased. By the use of tissue harmonic imaging, the spatial resolution and the contrast resolution are increased while the temporal resolution is decreased. By using gain, dynamic range, grayscale and color B imaging, it is the contrast resolution alone that is affected, while increasing the depth will decrease the spatial resolution and decrease temporal resolution. While increasing sector width, there is decreased spatial resolution and decreased temporal resolution. By increasing line density, there is increased spatial resolution and decreased temporal resolution. To summarize, a stepwise approach for image optimization. After selecting appropriate size transducer and the transducer preset, you can start scanning. Once you start scanning, you select the appropriate depth and where you want to keep the focal zone. And once the ultrasound image is obtained, if it is not an optimum image, then you can adjust the gain, the time gain compensation, the gray map, dynamic range, sector width, line density, compound imaging, THI and color B mode, and you can get an optimized image.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to know how many the fellows are there in the group. Ritesh sir, can I share my screen?
Amjad.
Yeah, you can, Shiva. You'll have to unshare Sweta.
Okay. I mean, in the meanwhile, I know that, I mean, Govind is little fast. We were more about the time concerned. So initially we thought we will restrict to 10 minutes each for all the three topics. Now we are taking only two, but each one takes about 20 minutes. We go up to 40 minutes. So that's why it was a little bit fast. And I wanted to listen from the fellows. Are you all there? And do you have any doubts? I know you will have a lot of doubts.
You have to ask first. Fellows, kindly
Are
open.
you shared? I will just.
Fellows,
Okay, I think nobody will nobody will ask any questions. At least if they have their faces seen, we can talk to them and then I can summarize.
that's the problem with our fellows.
Okay, because in this presentation it is too dry and Govind was a little fast, so it's very difficult for fellows to keep a track of it. Okay, let me just summarize. I wanted them to take three important take-home messages. The first one is the ultrasound image is nothing but interpretation of reflected echoes. And the reflected echoes only which makes images on the screen. So we have to get maximum echoes come back to the probe. The only parameter that determines is angle of insonation. So we have to hit our target of interest at 90 degree so that we will get maximum echoes come back to the probe so that we can get a better image. So to get our angle of insolation close to 90 degree, we have to handle our probe. So that is done by part maneuver. So the fellows should not think that we have explained about 15 parameters. Should I adjust all these buttons to get an optimal image? It's not. So if you do an effective part maneuver and get maximum returned echoes, 80% of your image optimization is done with. So you should, because only whatever the echoes that come back to the machine, then only we can, by adjusting the knobs, these knobs are going to handle the returned echoes. Suppose if there is no echoes come back to the machine, there is no point in adjusting all these refinements. So that is why the part maneuver is the key, which is going to offer 80% of your optimization. The purpose of part maneuver is we have to hit our target at 90 degree, that is get our angle of insolation close to 90 degree. So this is the first take home message. Part maneuver is the key for optimal image. That optimizes 80% of our job. And then the second thing that you have to remember is once you get an image onto the screen, the other 10% will be optimized by appropriate probe selection and then choosing an appropriate preset. So if you do these two things, the remaining 10% of optimization is over. Then the depth and the gain. These are all the 4 buttons that you work with. One is you choose your probe, select an optimal preset. Once you get an image, ensure that your target of interest is on the center of the screen and then adjust the gain so that the brightness is optimal. So if you just do this 4 things, the another 10 to 15% of optimization is done. So 95% of your optimization work is over with this. Then what about all the remaining 15 parameters or 13 parameters? What you have spoken about is remaining 5% of refinement. So in a high frequency image, these things doesn't matter. Whenever you have a low frequency images, deeper targets, that is where knowing all these buttons going to enhance your image by 20 to 30%. So by manipulating all these 15 parameters, you are going to improve the image by 3 means. Either these buttons are going to change the spatial resolution, or it is going to change the contrast resolution, or it is going to change the temporal resolution. So these are all the 3 resolutions that you have to read about and know what they mean by. The temporal resolution is for moving structures. As a regional anesthesiologist, all our targets are more or less static. Whereas in cardiac ultrasound, where we are doing an echo, and all our structures are moving where the temporal resolution plays a major role. So we are more concerned with the spatial resolution and then the contrast resolution. So all these buttons, any of these things you adjust, they are going to ultimately change these resolutions and make your image better. So how these buttons works at what resolution, you have to understand. That is a second step. Okay, you know that the part maneuver is the key, and these are all the buttons are going to change any one of the resolutions. And then finally, when you have so many things, where to start, where to end is the flow chart which has been shown here. I will just glance through the flow chart, why it has been made like this, and then I will end my discussion. Uh, 1 minute, or is it from your... Amjad, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. So just going on to the... No, I don't have his PPT. It's all... it's...
Sir, it is narrative PPT, sir. If it is in minimized mode, it will be there.
Only
sir.
it will work. Okay, let me minimize and then see. Yeah, okay. Is it now visible now? I
Yes,
will
sir.
not go to the okay slideshow mode. That's fine. Okay, I mean, what here is, I wanted all the fellows to observe is, first we have to choose an appropriate transducer, and that's the first step. For superficial structures, you choose high frequency probe. For deeper structure, you choose low frequency probe. The second step is you have to select the preset, because by choosing the appropriate preset, almost 80 to 85% of optimization is done by the machine itself. Then you put your probe onto the patient, you will get an image. Then you adjust the depth and the focus. Depth in the sense your target of interest should be at the middle of the screen. And then in some equipments, the focus is by default set at the middle of the screen. So you need not adjust on any extra button. Whereas in some other machines, you have a separate button for focus. You have to ensure that your focal point at the towards exactly your target. So after choosing the appropriate probe, choosing an appropriate preset, and you place the probe, you adjust the depth and the focus, you get an image. Then after that, these are all the 4 parameters that you can use to refine your image further. One is the gain. In some machines, a gain button directly will be there, and another machines a time gain compensation where the screen can be split into multiple bands, and by increasing each one, you can enhance the particular part of the image. Once you optimize your gain, then you can go to the gray map. Gray map is nothing but the individual shades are going to change. So you just different gray maps, see in which gray map that your image is better for your visibility. You freeze it and then you adjust the dynamic range. In most of the machines, the gray map may not be there, only the dynamic range will be there. By switching the dynamic range, you can know the contrast ratio will be changing. How individual button works, you refer back to the PowerPoint, you know how these things changes images. Then you have to adjust the sector width. Sector width is nothing but the area of scanning. The more the area, the speed of the ultrasound is going to come down. That is, the temporal resolution is going to go down. So once you get adjust these images, you reduce your sector width so that you focus the scanning area only where you wanted to scan, by which your temporal resolution will increase. By maintaining the line density, again, the area where you are looking at become more crisper and clearer. After that, you apply the special softwares. So that is going to add up another 2 to 5% of optimization. So that is the last thing that we will add. And then finally, if you want, you can change the color and see. So all these things will matters whenever you have a deeper targets where your target is not clear to begin with. So then only these optimizations will come into play so that you can get your image better. Or you are handling a new machine where you don't know why the image is not clear. Unless you know all these manipulations, you cannot work out with that machine. So with this sum up, I will go to the next presentation, Shweta, the artifacts in ultrasound. Over to Shweta.
I'll start my presentation.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Shweta. I'm currently doing my fellowship at MGMCRI Puducherry under Dr. Shiva Shanmugam. Today my presentation is on ultrasound artifacts. This is the overview of my presentation. This will cover the definition of an artifact, how it originates, classification of artifacts based on the mechanisms involved in their formation, then the individual artifacts with its clinical importance and how to avoid them whenever possible. What is an artifact? It is a misrepresentation of the actual anatomy in the ultrasound image. We should pick up these artifacts in our practice to be able to understand whether what you're seeing is real or not. In some artifacts, there are additional structures formed in the image that does not exist in real. Like in this example of mirror artifact, 2 subclavian arteries are seen instead of 1. The one under the pleura is not real. In some artifacts, structures that are present in reality are missing in the image. Example for this is shadow formed by the ribs in this image obscure the pleura under it. So in the image, the pleural line appears broken even though the pleura is continuous under the ribs. In some artifacts, the shape or size or location of the structures are altered in the image. In this image, you can see that the needle appears broken or bent and the distal portion of the needle slightly appears deeper than it actually is. So the shape of the needle and location of the needle is wrong here. Formation of the artifacts can be contributed to 2 factors: nature of the ultrasound physics and assumptions involved during image processing. Nature of the ultrasound physics are the limitations posed by the fundamental laws of ultrasound physics that cannot be changed. Image processing assumptions are the assumptions made by the machine, which I'll be discussing in detail. These are the 7 assumptions made by the ultrasound machine, which I'll focus on one by one. Assumption 1 is echoes travel in single straight line. In order to calculate where the structures are located, machine assumes ultrasound beam is in straight line. But in reality, machine cannot tell if the beam has taken a turn or bounced off some structure. Second assumption is ultrasound beam is 2-dimensional. The ultrasound image that we get in the monitor is 2D, so machine assumes the beam is also 2D. But in reality, the beam is much more complex and is 3-dimensional. Also note that the beam is assumed as a single main beam originating from the center of the probe. If you notice the shape of the beam, initially it narrows to a point called focal zone, marked by the red arrow, and distal to the focal zone, the beam widens. Next, main beam provides all the reflected echoes is the assumption. I said previously that ultrasound beam is much more complex. All around the main beam, there are multiple low intensity beams called side lobes. Transducer consists of several crystals arranged in a row, and ideally each crystal should give off only one vertical line below the element. Unfortunately, in reality, the ultrasound beam emitted by the crystal is not one-dimensional line but has 3-dimensional shape. With this image, I want to stress that these so-called side lobes are radiating low intensity beams in 360 degrees around the main beam. Also, they overlap each other, especially as it goes more deep. Fourth assumption is that all echoes return after single reflection from an object. But in reality, some of the echoes can get scattered by objects or absorbed by tissues or reflected elsewhere, ending up not returning back to the transducer. Next assumption is that attenuation of ultrasound is uniform throughout. Attenuation is loss of beam intensity. Assumption is that the rate of attenuation is half the transducer frequency every centimeter of tissue it passes. What happens in reality is little more complicated. The table on the right side lists the attenuation coefficient of different tissues. For the purpose of easy explanation, I'll take muscle and bone. Muscle has very low attenuation coefficient of 0.2 to 0.6 compared to bone, that is 13 to 26 decibel per centimeter. When the tissue with low and high coefficient meets, most of the echoes will get reflected back to the transducer and a strong echogenic image is generated. The small amount of remaining echoes that passes through the bone gets absorbed by the bone itself, and it is seen as a shadow below the bright echogenic line. Another example is air and tissue interface, which is the reason why when air is injected, it appears very bright. Next assumption is that the speed of the ultrasound is constant in all types of tissue. It is assumed to be 1540 meter per second. In reality, ultrasound velocity is medium specific, and from the table you can see that the velocity of the ultrasound is the slowest in air with 330 meter per second, whereas in the bone it travels with the speed of 4000 meter per second. Next assumption is related to depth. Machine calculate the depth using this formula. Velocity of the ultrasound multiplied by time taken for an echo to travel to and fro divided by 2. We already know machine assumes ultrasound velocity as 1540 meter per second. In this example, let us assume that the ultrasound echo travels through fat to hit the object and returns back, and it takes 77 microseconds for the return. According to the assumption 1540 meter per second, calculated depth of the object is at 6 centimeter. But in reality, ultrasound travels much slower through fat, that is 1450 meter per second, and hence the actual distance of the object is at 5.5 centimeter. So due to the assumption, the target has appeared more deeper than the reality, with a difference of 0.5 centimeter. Based on these assumptions, artifacts are classified into 4 categories. They are beam character assumption, echo path assumption, velocity assumptions, attenuation assumption. Under the beam character assumption, there are beam width and side lobe artifacts, and under echo path assumptions, there are reverberation, comet tail, mirror image artifacts. Under velocity assumptions, bayonet and refraction artifact, and under attenuation assumptions, shadowing and enhancement artifacts. If you remember, the ultrasound beam width is assumed to be transducer width, but the main beam initially converges to a focal zone and from there it diverges so that the beam may cross the assumed beam width. Imagine a target structure deeper to the focal zone that's in the center of the main beam. And now imagine a second object in the periphery of the main beam that lies outside the beam width. Now the main beam will pick up the second object, but the machine will think that the object is within the transducer width and display the second object overlapped onto the target. To correct this artifact, focal zone has to be adjusted deeper to the level of the target so that the peripheral objects are not picked up during imaging. Peripheral object is now outside both the beam width and the main beam. This is the ultrasound image of bladder. On the left side, the focal zone is not adjusted to the depth of the bladder. We can see echoes within the bladder, which could lead to wrongful diagnosis of bladder lesions, but it is actually beam width artifact. On the right side, where the focal zone is corrected to the bladder, The artifact has disappeared and bladder looks empty of lesions. Next is side lobe artifact. We know that in addition to the main beam, there are radiating overlapping side lobes all around the main beam. When high frequency linear probe is used, and if highly reflective object like a needle is in the path of these side lobes, they get picked up. It is multiple side lobes picking up a single needle. Hence the needle image is duplicated, forming overlapped needle images which finally appear to be linear. And these needle images get processed as if they are picked up by the main beam. This side lobe artifact happens frequently with high frequency linear probes. Side lobes overlapping are much more prominent, more distal to the probe. Unfortunately, this artifact cannot be diminished with simple ultrasound settings. We can try adjusting the focal zone and to have a better lateral resolution. We had recreated this artifact by placing a needle in the water bath and scanning it in short axis using linear probe. Bright central image is the needle. On either side, you can see the linear side lobe artifacts. As the needle comes and goes, you can see the side lobe artifact along with it. During in-plane needling, this side lobe artifact can be seen as faded artifact anterior to the actual needle. This is again a recreated image from the needle in the water bath. You can notice the artifact anterior to the actual needle in plane. In this video, you can see the side lobe artifact as the needle enters the field. This is the clinical image of the side lobe artifact. The actual needle is indicated by the yellow arrows and the artifact is indicated by the white arrows. This is the image of the in-plane needling done on a phantom. Note the impression of the probe outline and center of the probe. Needle is not inserted exactly in the middle of the probe, but still the side lobes have picked up the needle, as you can see it on the ultrasound image. The side lobe artifact become more prominent, distal and deeper to the probe. On the left side, notice the scanning of the needle from side to side, noticing the relation of the probe marker to the needle. Even when the marker and the needle does not coincide exactly, the image of the needle is formed with varying intensity. The problem with this artifact is that if the target vessel is small enough, it creates an illusion that the needle is inside the vessel. But in reality, the needle may be outside the vessel and side lobe may be picking it up. In this image of in-plane needling, the needle appears to be within the artery on the left-hand side, which is due to the side lobe artifact. But after hydrolocation, the actual needle tip is clearly seen outside the artery. This artifact can cause real challenge for us during cannulation of the vessel, as it gives false sense of intravascular placement of the needle, especially due to the fact that this artifact cannot be overcome easily with adjusting machine settings. Next artifact I'll be discussing is reverberation artifact, which is caused due to multiple echo paths. This is the probe. Assume this yellow cylinder as a lumen of the needle with anterior and posterior walls. Initially, few echoes hit the anterior and posterior wall of the needle and return back after single reflection at say 12 and 19 microseconds. This will form an image at the depth of 1 and 1.5 centimeter respectively. This is the actual image of the needle. But some of these echoes get reflected back and forth within the lumen itself and return later than the previous echoes. As it gets returned later to the probe, the image will be formed deeper to the actual needle. Echoes returning after 2 to 3 reflections return at 25 microsecond, forming an image at 2 centimeter depth, and echoes returning at 38 microseconds, forming an image at 3 centimeter, and so on. So the final image will appear as if numerous needles are placed under the actual needle. This is reverberation artifact. In this image, the actual Toohe needle is only the first 2 lines, and remaining lines are all reverberation artifacts. This artifact can be reduced by decreasing the angle of the ultrasound beam to less than 90 degrees to the needle. In addition, a reduction in far gain will darken the distal artifacts. Needle is entering the water bath at an angle to the ultrasound beam, hence a fewer reverberation artifact, whereas needle entering perpendicular to the ultrasound beam causes numerous reverberation artifact. Next one is comet tail artifact. Mechanism is similar to reverberation. Multiple reverberation of the needle gets merged in short axis, looks like a comet tail under the actual needle with a tapering end. On the left hand side is the comet tail artifact recreated in the water bath, and on the right side you can see this artifact caused by the needle within the vein. In this video, comet tail artifact is recreated in a water bath. This is the artifact and this is the needle. Mirror image artifact. In this example of ultrasound scanning of the subclavian artery over the pleura, echoes hit both subclavian artery and pleura and an image is formed. Here, pleura-lung interface is a strong reflector. Note that the angle of incination is not exactly perpendicular to the pleura. So, some of the echoes get reflected from the pleura and hit the subclavian artery, and these echoes return later, causing a duplicate artery to appear deeper to the pleura. This may cause confusion, and it is important to note that the image closer to the probe is the actual artery. To eliminate this artifact, change the angle of incination. This video shows the mirror artifact recreated in a water bath. The base of the water bath acts as a strong reflector, causing the finger to mirror under the base. In this example, mirror image of the subclavian artery appears under the pleura, and 1 over the pleura is the real subclavian artery. If the angle of incination is perpendicular to the pleura, only one subclavian artery appears and there is no mirror artifact. But if the angle of incination is not perpendicular, then a second subclavian artery, which is mirror image, is formed under the pleura. Bayonet artifact due to velocity assumption. We know that ultrasound travels slower in fat than muscle. Imagine a needle passing in plane through the muscle with its tip at the fat around the nerve. As ultrasound travels faster in the muscle, first the shaft of the needle appears in the image, but the echoes from the tip of the needle returns little late, making the tip appear broken and deeper to the shaft of the needle. In this clinical example, the needle tip appears bent and broken and is slightly deeper to the shaft of the needle. This artifact does not cause much confusion in clinical practice. Next is refraction artifact. Here is a tissue that acts like lens. It diverts the ultrasound beam to a side and picks up an object that is not originally in the ultrasound path and projects the object as if it is in the center instead of the side. Notice that the vessel is towards the side of the probe, but in the image it appears in the center. This is the example for refraction artifact. This is the rectus muscle that acts like lens, diverting the ultrasound beam, and this is the aorta. The ultrasound beam labeled 1 passes between the two rectus and hits the aorta, forming an image here. Now the second ultrasound beam passing through the rectus is changed in direction. It also hits the aorta and returns back to the probe. But the image is formed in line with the original second ultrasound path. as if it didn't get refracted. So in the image it appears as if there are two iotas. This artifact happens when the probe is placed at an angle to the rectus muscle and can be easily corrected by changing the angle of inclination. This is the supraumbilical scanning of aorta through rectus muscle. This is the rectus muscle here. When the probe is placed perpendicular to the rectus muscle, there is no artifact and aorta appears single. When the probe is placed at an acute angle to rectus muscle, the aorta appears as 2. This is refraction artifact. This is the color Doppler of the same artifact. This is not the bifurcation of the aorta. The scanning was done way above the umbilicus and you can also see the IVC separately. Next is acoustic shadowing artifact. Usually a dense structure like a bone or stone will almost completely reflect the echoes at its interface with the tissue of low attenuation coefficient, causing a bright outline, and it absorbs the remaining ultrasound that passes through. So the structures are not visualized under these high reflectors and is seen as shadow below. Clinical example of acoustic shadow of the ribs hiding the pleura under it. In the retroclavicular approach for infraclavicular block, we should be aware of the clavicular shadow hindering the visibility of part of the needle as it passes behind the clavicle. Coming to acoustic enhancement, a fluid-filled space like a cyst or a blood vessel transmit the ultrasound exceptionally well and fast through it, causing enhancement of echogenicity posterior to them. Notice the posterior enhancement deep to the artery on the left side, and this artifact can be clinically useful to differentiate blood vessels from nerve roots. Like in this image, notice the enhancement behind the vertebral artery, whereas no such enhancement is present under the C7 nerve root. The intensity of the acoustic enhancement changes with the probe angle. Like you see in this video, now there is no acoustic enhancement. As the probe angle changes, the acoustic enhancement becomes more prominent. So a good understanding of artifacts, why they arise and how to deal with them when they arise is important for safety and success during regional anesthesia practice. Thank you.
What a presentation.
I hope this is
Amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah, lovely. Actually, Shiva, you thought that the previous person also was very fast, but I loved both the
Amazing.
presentations. They
Just
were
amazing
remarkable.
presentation.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Both of them did a great job.
so for Govind, we didn't have a time to work on the communication part. We initially
No,
thought
it's
of different
wonderful.
ways of putting it, because this image optimization is another one.
No, I don't even see such presentations in the international forum.
It was just
Thank you very
amazing.
much.
The quality of
Amazing.
presentation and the content. Yes,
Content.
communication, they have a lot of time to improve on.
Yes, I
Ah.
understand. So
The way they presented, it shows how much they have gone into depth and understood that thing.
Yes.
That's why they were presenting it very nicely. It's really hats off to both of you, and hats off to Shiva.
Shiva.
thank you very much. I don't know how far our fellows are looking looking at it. I think if they are interacting, because we worked on the presentation almost 20-25 days, almost 5 to 6 times. But if those people look at it and ask some doubts, we are happy to
Yeah.
interact.
May I request the fellows kindly open up? One of your colleagues, two of your colleagues have given hard work for last 20-25 days. So any doubts? Obviously, I don't, if you tell that you don't have any doubts, then I am very sorry, because still understanding image optimization and the artifacts, still everybody has a confusion with the amount of time you read. So if you have any doubts, please come. This is a forum to ask anyone, please.
And I think these recordings are available, isn't it? Ritu?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that they can
all recordings are available.
they can go through. I mean, this is available on our website so that they can go and see.
Amjad will upload it. Amjad was slightly busy.
No,
and
I actually don't have access to the YouTube.
Okay.
I've asked, I mean, I've asked this before, but I think Murli was too busy, and I have a collection of the few of these talks.
I think
but,
Hetal has the
Hetal,
user
you
ID and
have
password.
access to YouTube?
I have access to the YouTube, but I cannot give access to you. Only Murli can do it.
Why? Okay. So,
Because I think they get OTP. They send some OTP. It will be on Murli's mobile only.
okay.
So if you can send me the presentation, I can upload it.
Amjad, you just upload it on your Google Drive and send that link to him so that he can upload in the YouTube.
All right, I'll do that.
That you can do that.
Okay, so that I mean they can see at least 2-3 times because the topic is very dry. It's really difficult to pick up at the first sight. So if they at least listen to it multiple times, they can grasp it well. Unless if they read something about and come with the doubts, it's very difficult to ask any questions. So I think we have to interact with our fellows and tell them that please make use of these sessions because a lot of hard work is going and their own colleagues are presenting. Request all the.
I will say they can ask question afterward also on our group also on a WhatsApp group if they have any doubts.
Yeah, I mean, do they have a separate WhatsApp group?
Yeah, not separate. The Aura Fellowship class group is there.
Oh, so that is a.
That WhatsApp group is there. They can ask
But none of them are putting any messages onto them. Only Amit and we only communicating with them.
The problem is the first batch was also a silent batch. The second batch is also a silent batch. So
okay, fine. Because we are so much concerned about the time we removed the needling part, we will, I mean, if you give a slot for us 10 minutes, in the next presentation, I will ask one of the third fellows to talk about it.
There is a question, please.
Senthil, you can unmute yourself and you can ask directly. No need to type. Anybody who has got a question, unmute and ask the question. Senthil, you can unmute and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, every mentors. Sir, in last few scanning, I was having a confusion in axillary block while giving axillary block due to acoustic enhancement. I was mistaking the acoustic enhancement for radial nerve. So in real term, how can we overcome this?
Shall I take that?
Yeah, please. Yeah, Amjad.
Okay, so Senthil, every blood vessel, it's not just in the axillary area, it's even the axillary artery in the infraclavicular area will throw out a posterior acoustic enhancement artifact or shadow, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, in the infraclavicular area, it is very difficult to sometimes overcome it, but in the axillary area, it is actually easy to differentiate between the artifact and the radial nerve. Your scan in the axillary area, especially for the radial nerve is usually the bigger of the nerves there, but unfortunately it's difficult to identify. So your scan has to be very dynamic. If you do not see the radial nerve initially between the 4 to 6 o'clock position, you need to scan distally. And at some point, the radial nerve will go past the tendon, conjoint tendon, and move towards the humerus where it spirals around. So you need to do this sort of a dynamic scan to identify if the radial nerve is following its normal course. Then you will be able to see the radial nerve at different spots and be able to differentiate this between the artifact. You get my point? You need a proximal to distal sweep scan to see that the radial nerve is moving away and going from the artery and going towards the humerus.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Is there any other points you wanted to add? You have to unmute, Shweta.
Yes, sir. So this enhancement, that the intensity of the enhancement also changes with the probe position. So if we tilt the probe, the enhancement may, the intensity may come down, but the radial nerve will appear the same. Maybe radial nerve anisotropy sometimes may confuse it, but changing the probe position angle will help.
Yeah, sometimes when you tilt the probe, the enhancement will go down. If you're tilting aligned to the radial nerve, the angle of inclination will become better with the radial nerve. Sometimes the radial nerve become more clearer and the intensity of enhancement will go down. Or you know that the position is fairly between 4 to 6 o'clock. You can do a bit of hydrolocation and create a hypoechoic contrast where you can see things very clearly. Most of the time in a deeper area, this is the technique that we use. You go there, you know fairly in that area the radial nerve is there. You create a bit of local anesthetic or saline so that you will get enhanced. If it is not, you can stimulate and then locate it. So these are all the three things. One is changing tilting, the probe angle can change the intensity of enhancement. If your angulation is close to the 90-degree for radial nerve, the radial nerve will flare up, whereas the enhancement will go down. Or you can stimulate, or you can hydrolocate. These are all the, and you can, as Amjad said, you back and forth scanning is another easiest way to consistently see your target and differentiate it from artifacts.
Okay.
The course of the radial nerve, it's not going to lose or change its intensity like an enhancement.
Okay.
Dr. Shiva, with this observation, sometimes it is impossible to see the radial nerve however you try. How relevant it is for our postgraduates to see all the time or just inject the drug posterior to axillary artery and anterior to conjoint tendon?
So usually now, since we are becoming I would recommend to, because once you go and hydrodissect between the artery and the conjoint tendon, once you create the space, usually it is easy to see it because the local anesthetic deposited within the paraneural compartment of the radial nerve will have a good longitudinal spread. But if you're away from the paraneural compartment, usually the local anesthetic will not circumferentially spread along the radial nerve. So you may have a patchy block. So that is my concern, like a single point injection below the artery. Some areas might get spat. So that is why we try to teach them once you hydrolocate and try to look at the radial nerve and then try to get into the paraneural compartment. But I've seen the articles where they have used only 2-point injection, still they get the same results, but I have not practiced it.
Because my observation is at least 30 to 40% of the patients where it is located at 6 o'clock position,
it is not
in the apex of the axilla, you don't see it at all.
Yes, yeah. True.
Hello, Shiva sir.
Yes.
Neha here. So just for the sake of this, beginners, can we ask to like specifically when we are injecting in the axillary radial, and can we ask them to to initiate with the dual guidance and then shift over to only ultrasound, like from the first years and all? I used to tell them like that because so many times emergency and all, they were using both PNS and this thing. So they have reported me, ma'am, like I was thinking that was I was like, that is radial, that is ulnar, but when we put on the PNS, it was not like that. So any take home for that?
Actually, there is a personal bias is there. Since I was more towards ultrasound, even though we know theoretically, I'm not honestly practicing it in everyday practice. But
No,
that
sir,
is a
not
very
for
good-
experts, like for the beginners.
I'm telling for that. Even I'm not. Yes, that can be very well done. There is two way. One is if you are in doubt, you can stimulate and then confirm it. That's one way of teaching. The other way of teaching is scan back and forth. Don't rely on anatomical position. So I always train the students not only to look at there. You trace the entire radial nerve along the course and the entire ulnar nerve. When they did it and understand it once, so this need doesn't arise at all because they are not relying on any specific patterns. So this is two way of approaching it. Anyway, they should have the nerve stimulation skill set also is very important. But making it as a standard practice is a bit of difficulty for everybody to accept.
I too agree with what Shiva is telling. The back and forth technique is the best way to identify the different nerves and combining. Obviously, we also don't combine both PNS and EA. So the trace back technique, so to and fro technique is the best way to actually identify the nerves, because obviously you cannot go that on this location your ulnar nerve will be there, in this location your radial nerve will be there. So back and forth technique is the best way to identify the nerves.
Even in the last meeting, I mean, Rushali madam emphasized it. There is a paradigm shift in the approach right now. We try to teach the resident all the structures that are there in the ultrasound window, including the muscles and the bone, so that they are not stuck up there. Their vision is not very narrow. They are not lost. The moment I disturb them, so that from the beginning, from the day one itself, we try to teach them in this mode so that they are not stuck to the patterns, but they really understand all the structures. So they will relate the nerve to everything. So they will not get lost. So I think we should somehow, our teaching method should be itself is identify everything and then understand the anatomy as a whole, then only the nerves. That will go a long way. Moment they understood in every single area, I mean, slowly they will build up on that. And of course, in a deeper area where you have to use a dual modality, so that's there's no doubt about it. But in superficial areas where you can clearly see the targets, it is better to trace them back and forth and identify everything in that zone, so that they will know, even in difficult situation, they will identify the nerves clearly.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
Another problem with dual guidance is like for sciatic now, especially in popliteal area, even if you are close to the nerve with ultrasound guided technique, many times you don't get response with PNS.
Yes, yeah, that's also true. And another one is adding up a cost. So
that's true.
It's one of the more important reason why we initially for superficial plexus we don't take up that stimulating. Yes, sir, Ritesh, I mean, if there is no other questions, our time
I don't think there is another.
Up 808. We are on time.
Yeah, we are on time. Our fellows will not open up. I think this batch will also be a quiet batch.
This is very common, sir, in all the discussions. I am feeling that only that student. I think faculties are more involved and discussion rather than students.
I request mentors to tell them to read and have something so that they should be asking questions. I mean, otherwise.
Probably, Shiva, each mentor needs to tell their fellow that they need to have 2 questions prepared for that particular topic in the upcoming class.
Yeah, that we can do it.
Yeah, that can be.
Otherwise, I mean, they are not reading and it is only class for us.
Yeah, it's basically.
Yes.
So if there is no question, we'll wind up. Yeah,
honestly, this is a challenge I'm facing with postgraduates also. You all the time tell them to ask something, to at least tell us that whether they're understanding or not, but I don't know what's wrong. They just don't want to communicate. You are keen on teaching, you are keen on telling, and they just stand there listening. I don't know. We have to find a way out for this. We have to find a way out.
Okay, Ritesh, we'll just put it up in the group. mandatory for next class, each fellow has to come armed with 2 questions.
Okay.
Mandatory. And we will add 15 minutes extra to the class.
And bracket if the fellow doesn't ask the question, the mentor will be penalized.
Let's not be so hard on them. I think take heart. Let them absorb the subject. I'm sure it will come once their minds open and they realize that this is a very safe place for them to open up, ask. Nobody is going to judge them. This is a very non-judgmental, helpful,
whole of
happy
last
place.
year, none of them opened up.
Madam, I am thinking of the way to increase aura fund also. If the mentors will be penalized 10,000 per class, if the fellow doesn't ask question, and that will go to aura fund.
No. But all fellows, now that you have embarked upon this journey of regionals, which is a fascinating one, feel safe here. Nobody is going to say that, oh, come on, what a stupid question. These mentors are just far too good for that. And keep thinking. That's where everything shall originate from. There were 2 thoughts here about how detailed one should go in the details of identifying the nerves. And Kopat sir and Neha had another look out here. That yes, but why not go a little general if you cannot really put your finger, this is the nerve and I need to be in that particular sheet. Can still regional anesthesia be practiced? These are all food for thoughts. They can be practiced even this way as well as that way. So everybody may not have real high class machines. Sometimes we may have to go general. Sometimes we do get the luxury of going detailed. So the journey is fascinating. I mean, just open up, look at the entire picture. The more you see, the more you think, the more you'll have questions. That much I'm sure of. And you're in a very safe place.
At least we can request them to switch on their videos, because all our it's already this online teaching is becoming more boring and the engagement is not that great. But at least the fellows can show their face every time during the discussion, at least, so that there is an opportunity for us to see them by face and speak to them.
I just can't understand when they prepare, they present so nicely, but why they don't come up in other classes? By this way, your learning will become more stronger, because you are coming, reading that same topic, whether you are presenting or not, and you come up. Obviously, everybody will have some doubts when you are reading. So why not clear those doubts here itself?
Yeah, and by the time you're ready for your exam, so I mean, if you've attended everything and you've read everything, I think you don't need to really do any extra work.
Madam, the way the classes schedule has been made,
yes.
If the fellows just come prepared for all the fellowship classes,
the syllabus is covered.
Whole course will be
course
will be finished.
Yes.
That's why even in our institute, again taking a separate class is it's the same thing. When
exactly.
If they attend regularly all these things and then involve in the discussion, it's the same.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sir. Ritesh sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for putting
Thank
in the
you.
group. Otherwise,
Bye-bye.
I would have missed this class even.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
nice,
Neha.
very
Nice
nice
meeting you.
presentation. Both
Thank you,
both
Very
everybody.
presented.
very good presentation. Keep it up.
Just a request, ma'am. Next time also please post it in the group, because last 2 classes I was missing. It was posted by 7:45. It was posted, but it was posted little late, so I was not aware of the class. These I would have missed.
We all will
the
keep
very
that in
class.
mind.
ये अमजद का गलती है, मेरा नहीं है.
Whatever in the group, anyone can put it in the main group so that we will join.
Yes,
that was really nice class.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am, we'll
Shiva
do
sir.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.